Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to another episode of Geopolitics East and West with myself, Adil Raja, and Theo-A-Mullis is joining me as usual. Every week, we present to you the latest development on various active war zones, war fronts, or geopolitical flashpoints. And today, we would be talking about the Iran situation, which is very important. Then the Ukraine situation, where Russia is allegedly doing something very dodgy and very concerning. We'll be discussing that. Theo has got an insight, and we'll be showing you some pictorials of it as well. And then the most important thing which is going on, I believe, is in the UK, there is a strategic shift. Europe has already taken that strategic shift. They've already made a deal with the Chinese regarding EVs, at least electronic vehicles, and now they've made so-called mother of all trade deals with India. So, likewise, I mean, the United Kingdom made a free trade agreement before the European Union with India, and now they're going for a trade agreement with Chinese, and definitely the people across the pond are not happy, but it is going on. And Prime Minister Keir Starmer says that the Britons are going to be very wealthy. They'll become wealthy after this deal with China. So I think that is the biggest development ever since the Second World War, maybe, once we talk about the transatlantic alliance. And there is a lot of opposition to it, but President Trump's attitude is definitely helping in reshaping the global geopolitical landscape, and especially what's happening in the USA itself with ICE agents roaming in the streets, shooting people in broad daylight. Well, that is not, bringing any brownie points for President Trump. So I welcome you, Theo, and let's talk about the last thing we've discussed. What's going on with ICE in the USA? That is, and how is it affecting the US soft power amongst its allies?
So, for those who don't know, ICE is a branch of the Department of Homeland Security, stands for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And their previous job was, well, I mean, it says so on the tin. They would deal with immigration issues, overstayers, etc., and they would deal with customs issues. Now, previous to this administration, what ICE would usually do is track down wanted offenders, so people who committed a crime who were also illegally in the country, as well as try to break up smuggling rings and human trafficking and human smuggling rings. Now, since Trump took power last year, he's increased the funding of ICE enormously. They now get about the same funding as the entire US Marine Corps, so an enormous amount of money. They've gone on a huge recruitment drive. You get a $50,000 sign-up bonus, and there are very, very big concerns that the people they're recruiting, there aren't any background checks or anything like that. Now, what ICE has been doing on the part of the administration is going essentially from city to city and carrying out what they call targeted raids and also roving enforcement, where they will stop people and check their immigration papers, check if they're a US citizen. And this is arguably pretty unconstitutional. And the basis of which they're doing these checks honestly could be pretty racist. A lot of the times it's based off the color of somebody's skin, whether or not they have an accent that isn't, an American accent, and whether or not they're speaking a language other than English. And this has been met with quite significant resistance. Now we turn to Minneapolis in the state of Minnesota, where they currently are about, I think, 2,000 to 3,000 ICE agents in the city, which is outnumbering the city's police department, carrying out these raids and this roving attacks almost. And that's been met with a lot of civic resistance. People are out protesting. There's an app which you can download where you can update on locations of ICE officers, and people are peacefully trying to disrupt this because it is an enormous breach of what were considered basic rights in the United States. And this has come to a head this month with the slaying of 2 US citizens, Renee Good, the other week, who was shot sitting in her car by an ICE agent as she tried to drive away. Now, the administration immediately responded saying she tried to drive into the ICE agent. And if you look at the footage, then I would say unlikely. And then very recently on Saturday, we had the slaying of Mr. Alex Pretty, who, I was a police officer for years, and what I saw was pretty shocking. I would encourage viewers to take some caution, but go and watch the video. And you can see Mr. Pretty and another protester here we go, we have it here. I don't know if that's the footage of Mr. Pretty, but are filming ICE. ICE agents go up to them, push a female protester down. Mr. Pretty goes to try to help her up and then is pushed down himself. Now, Mr. Pretty was carrying a firearm, which he's legally allowed to do. It's a constitutional right in the United States. That was tucked into the back of his trousers. He is disarmed of that firearm. You can see an ICE agent leave with it. There are about 7 ICE agents on him at that point. And after he is disarmed, one of the ICE agents shouts, "Gun," and other ICE agents fire about 10 rounds into Mr. Pretty, killing him. Now, Mr. Pretty was a nurse. He worked in the intensive care unit at a veterans hospital for the Veterans Administration. And his slaying really has caused an enormous strength of feeling in the United States. And it's something that the administration has completely failed to handle. Stephen Miller came out immediately, that's Trump's deputy chief of staff, and said that Mr. Pretty was out to assassinate police officers, and this was echoed by others. Christine Noem may have been demoted, and the head of Border Patrol in the area, I forget his name off the top of my head, has been asked to leave the city. But Trump has tried to react to the strength of feeling, but he's failed. And what these ICE raids are causing is a real shift away from him, even amongst elements of the Republican base. Now, the MAGA diehard are still going to be with him, because I honestly think there's very little they could do, that Trump could do to turn them off of him. But as the midterms are coming closer in November, ICE and the immigration policy has gone from one of the things that got Trump elected to possibly now one of the things that's going to utterly shatter him come the midterms. And this was actually, there was a conversation allegedly recorded between Trump and Republican senator and previous presidential nominee, or hopeful, not nominee, didn't get the nomination, Ted Cruz, where Cruz says, you're going to lose the House, you're going to lose the Senate, and you're going to spend the next 2 years getting impeached every single week. Which, if things carry on as they are, if the midterms are free and fair, and that is an open question, seems likely. And as for the state of the United States as soft power in the world, well, its image has been shattered by this.
All right, fair enough. So, but all right, Leo. He does need a miracle, President Trump. And usually, once American president needs a miracle, a new war comes to their rescue, or Osama bin Laden is caught, or somebody who they think is equally important, a terrorist gets caught, and usually the Pakistanis are involved, and they will offer him something like that again. But this time, Iran is on the menu, it seems. So what do you think if President Trump does attack Iran, builds up to it? There are military exercises going on in Strait of Hormuz. There are tensions, and there are plans to diffuse the tensions. But we are seeing the exact replay of the Venezuelan situation, where there was this built up, and they said they're carrying out exercises, and then somebody within Venezuela defected. So it's a big question whether Iran is going to defect or not, obviously. But what do you think is the future of the Iran situation? What's going on over there? And if President Trump do attack Iran, is it not going to help him in the November polls?
I definitely want to ask the same question of you. There's so little news that's able to get out of Iran at the moment.
Yes.
Now, Trump did tweet a couple of weeks ago, hold on, keep protesting. I don't think that he is going to go into Iran. Now, this is contradicting myself from a couple of weeks back, but things have moved quite quickly for Trump, and he's flailing. And when you say, a short victorious war, that's often the thing done by many powers. That's already been done. That was done in Venezuela. That was one of the aims of that. And that took
talking about
months
Venezuela,
of preparation.
we had the same debate. People were saying that he's going to attack. The military buildup was there, and they said no, he's not going to attack. And once everybody was saying this, that he's not going to attack, like they are now saying that he's not going to attack Iran, well, he moved in and he did attack and got him a lot of brownie points as well. But I don't know what's their worth with the ICE acting the way they're acting, and Trump administration defending their actions. Well, that's there, but obviously the element of surprise seems to be the game plan of the Trump administration or the Trump Pentagon. And if they achieve that, and if they attack, you never know, they go ahead and do it, because it is quite a volatile situation. Iranians are saying that we have got supersonic missiles. We're going to hit the U.S. carrier strike group, even USS Abraham Lincoln. I'm sure. The Americans are not going to go in blind. They've got the state-of-art technology. They're the biggest military in the world right now, and only thing they've got right now going for them is their military might. Otherwise, I don't see what's going on in their favor. And in that regard, before we move on to Ukraine and what the Russians are up to, that's really disgusting what they're up to. The Russian soldier tying mines to African mercenaries. Before we move on to that, what do you make out of Keir Starmer going to China and openly criticizing President Trump, and the way President Trump ridiculed the sacrifices of the British Army during the ISAF deployment, National Security Assistance Force deployment in Helmand in Afghanistan? The way he has rebuked President Trump and the way things are moving, it looks like the transatlantic alliance is no more the way it was, and the cousins are drifting apart.
Yeah, that was disgraceful. And it shows the depths of Trump's ignorance. Afghanistan, when Europe went there as well, it wasn't Europe's war to fight. They went there to support the Americans. The Americans had suffered the greatest attack on their nation since Pearl Harbor. And to have the European sacrifice denigrated and thrown out in such a way, especially when Afghanistan eventually failed so catastrophically, was such a careless insult and an unforced error on Trump's part. Now, as for Britain's closer relationships with China, I'm not very happy about that. I don't think any Democrat would be. But I can understand why they're doing it. They're building alternative trading partners for the United States, which is now proving itself to be unreliable, to be capricious, and we need Europe. Basically, Britain has always sat and has always, for the last 50 odd years, continued one policy, and that's really neither Washington nor Brussels will be in the EU, but yes, emotionally slightly apart, etc. And we can't do that anymore. We need to pick one. And I think Britain has to choose, and is choosing, Brussels. And Brussels is pursuing a closer relationship with China. And this is annoying the Americans. But the Americans pushed Brussels down this path. What can they expect? Where they threaten to invade areas of Europe. They pull out of support for a war on European soil. They denigrate their allies. The entire national security document put out last year attacks Europe more than it does Russia. And it is...
But then, Theo, the counter argument from the American point of view is, from the gun-loving, trigger-friendly American point of view is, whatsoever is left of MAGA camp's point of view is, listen, Trump respects the people who can defend themselves. That's why I respect President Xi. That's why I respect Putin. And he doesn't respect the people who can't defend themselves, or who calls him daddy, who think he's Trump is their sugar daddy. What was that all about anyway? So do you buy the counter argument then?
No. Putin has shown enormous weakness over the last 4 years. Europe is defending itself. Europe is defending itself in the greatest war on European soil since World War II. And it's the Ukrainians doing most of the fighting and dying. But Ukraine is in Europe. Ukraine is certainly now emotionally a part of Europe. And had it not been for the mistakes of people like Angela Merkel, would certainly be more integrated into Europe, and that war may not have happened. So no, Trump respects what he perceives as strength, and he perceives Putin to be strong because Putin, rides on horses topless and has large military parades, notably smaller military parades with fewer tanks in the last couple of years. But that strength, as Trump's strength, is all facade. Looking at Trump, you see the mind of a particularly malignant 14-year-old at times. And his MAGA base, if they could point to Europe on a map, I'd be surprised if they could point to many other places on a map either. Frankly, I couldn't give a hoot what they think.
All right, fair enough. So, what do you make out of Keir Starmer's quite open remarks? And you've already said it, but what do you make out of his rapprochement towards China and the Chinese embassy being allowed in London, irrespective of all the opposition? And it's a major tectonic shift in the geostrategic and business terms as well. So obviously, it is a major policy shift, definitely. How do you think it's going to play out for the UK?
For the United Kingdom, we stand at a fulcrum moment in history. It's, I think, now can be accurately described as the post 9/11 world, and the new world order is here. The United Kingdom needs to stand closer with its European partners and sort of be in lockstep with them until a further integration can be renegotiated. So that's why this is happening. And the UK needs strong trading partners that are, notably here, stable, that aren't going to put tariffs on the United Kingdom over a perceived slight on Twitter or Truth Social or something like that, which is the current state of the United States. And certainly the United States is completely schizophrenic foreign policy. All right. So I'm not happy about it. In fact, I'm deeply unhappy about it. But from a pragmatic point of view, why? Because I don't want to work closely with China. I think that democracies, as they stand, should be banding together. We shouldn't be engaging in sweetheart trade deals with one of the world's worst autocracies. I interviewed last week Amat Janjuma, who is a Uyghur from China, from Xinjiang. He can't ever go back because he would be put into prison immediately. And he describes the state of living there. The state of living for Uyghurs is horrific. Something you may be able to, you couldn't even say Uyghurs are Muslim, and it is illegal to greet in Uyghur, and it's illegal to say something like Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, you're right there. So it is a clash of civilization, fine. But before I move forward, let me clarify it to you, because the color of my skin might will tell that I've voted Labour. No, I haven't. I haven't voted Labour. I haven't voted for Keir Starmer. But what he said was that, listen, China is not going to be here. They're already here. It is a reality, and we need to deal with it. The European Union is already dealing with it. You don't necessarily have to go out and hug them or, make a strategic partnership. But once you talk business, well, they're the reality. They're not going anywhere, irrespective of Trump's regime sanctions and the tariffs. They call Trump the nation builder. Chinese call Trump the nation builder because they have, allowed them to, Trump has proven to be played the role of a catalyst in the great decoupling. The context of the great decoupling is this book by Nigel Inkster, the great decoupling. Trump has really helped in the great decoupling, and Chinese economy is still thriving. They're still growing. So Trump's tariffs have done nothing to them. In fact, I mean, they must have slowed down for a quarter maybe, but they've picked up again. So you need to deal with them. Anyway, leave it at that.
The Chinese economies hit the natural growth plateau, which happens when an economy grows incredibly. We saw this with the Japanese, and then quickly followed was the lost decade in the 90s. The Chinese are doing well, but they are not without their own structural and economic problems, the least of which, demography, rampant real estate bubble, which burst fairly recently. There are certainly issues which China has, but Europe has its own issues, and a trade deal can answer some of those. So I can understand pragmatically why it's being done. I don't like any of this. And Trump, at least as far as the Chinese are concerned, could well be the nation builder for them. But again, I don't like it.
we are living in strange times, Theo. Really strange times, because you're dealing with the Chinese, and they are in strategic alliance with Russia, and Russia is fighting Ukraine and Europe, and there is a third world war scare from the Russians. So, I mean, what comes around goes around.
I wouldn't go so far as to say the Chinese are in a strategic alliance with the Russians. None of these crink powers are in alliance with one another. There's always a quid pro quo. It's not like a NATO or something like that, at least in terms of European NATO, where there is a genuine alliance and there is genuine strength of feeling and comradeship towards one another.
And genuine competition as well.
Yeah, there's competition, but as far as Russia and China are concerned, China is eating up swathes of Siberia, not through outright annexation, but through a former 21st century colonization. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to go all the way up to Lake Baikal, which has rather a lot of the fresh water that the Chinese need, as they are running through the water table in northern China at pace.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, moving to Russia, since we were just talking about it, there's this United 24 video which shared allegedly by Russian media, and it is on YouTube. So that is why we can share it. Let's watch this short clip, and then I'll ask you what's going on over there.
Короче, вот такие товарищи у нас прибыли. Вот. What is your name?
Francis.
Сосать, уголек ты нахуй. Крывашка ты сегодня. Сейчас побежит, по лесу будет скакать. Вот. Чё ты очкуешь? Очкуй. Давай, пшел. Пшел, сказал.
No.
Давай, иди. Иди, сказал.
What's going on over there, Theo? What is it? I know what it is. How do you explain this phenomenon?
I would call it the Ruski Mir. This is an example of the kind of cruelty that we've seen from the Russians during this war.
So that's a mercenary.
Yes.
And he's got I believe, anti-tank mine on his chest. Yeah. So
he's going to be sent running towards the Ukrainian lines. in the hope that he either, through his death and the Ukrainians firing upon him, reveals a position. Perhaps he's being punished for some infraction. But it's not the only example of this kind of behavior that we see, especially towards mercenaries or towards those. And there are plenty of examples of students going to Russia thinking they're going to be studying at university, signing a contract that's in Russian, so they can't necessarily read it, and then finding themselves in eastern Ukraine at gunpoint and being forced to carry out assaults. It's not the first example of this kind of thing that we're seeing. And it is almost systematic at this point, the level of cruelty that the Russians are exhibiting.
Are the Russian winning the war? Are they anyway near winning the Ukraine war?
Well, they advanced about 70 meters, 10 to 70 meters a day, and 70 meters being at the strongest point of their advance. So that would have been in the city of Pokrovsk. To take that 10 meters to 70 meters a day costs 1,000 lives. So I am not very good at maths, but I think that's about 10 dead men a meter, if you're going to go for the harshest one. So are they winning? No. Are they losing? Well, they're losing a lot of people. How's the economy looking? Growth has tanked. And bear in mind that this growth that they often put out is artificial inflation through the building of military equipment, through forced purchase of government bonds, and through occasionally simply emptying the savings accounts of Russian citizens to fund this war effort. They're selling oil to China at almost a loss. Same with India, although India has a few Indian oil companies have said they're going to stop buying Russian oil because it's so unreliable in terms of the deliveries getting through on account of the, we'll call them kinetic sanctions from the Ukrainians. So no, they're not winning, nor is there an end to this. This wantonness, I think, will continue maybe for another 2 years. I think this war has left in it.
All right, let's see where it goes, because what's happening in Ukraine has got definitely, and Russia's aggression on Ukraine has got a direct impact on Europe, on the wider
on the world.
Yeah,
Ukraine is the breadbasket that feeds enormous numbers of countries.
The food prices in Pakistan and India have gone skyrocketed because of the war in Ukraine, because the staple food was coming from Ukraine, and they're unable to send it across. So obviously this is and prices in Europe has gone up. So what's going on is definitely not helping a common man, and we hope the war ends soon. But if it doesn't, then obviously are we looking at the Third World War here?
I mean, are we looking at one, or are we not already in a flavor of one?
We're already at it. We are already at it.
A stand-up, drag-out Third World War? No, we're not looking at that. What we're looking at is another Cold War, but just significantly more complicated. Mark Honey was right, and so was Macron in their speeches at Davos. The old world order is dead. And this new world order that we've moved into is defined by much greater competition, much greater risk, and more conflicts. And that's what we're likely to see in the next 10 years, I'd say.
Thank you so very much, Theo. Ladies and gentlemen,
thank you, Adil.
Mullis with us, and hopefully we'll see you soon. But Theo is going to travel, hopefully, to a war zone, and he'll be reporting from the war zones, and let's see what is the news from the front. Wish you all the best, Theo. Stay safe and stay in contact. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.